rest of the camp students on a daily basis, their work activities, some training and development, and guiding them through the system. So it's a very nurturing kind of program, which really worked out well last year. Yeah. Are we set to go, Mrs. Bruno?
Yes, we are.
Could you do me a favor
Sure.
and hand out those sheets? Would be great. Anybody who doesn't have a pen, they can take notes right on there if they haven't brought their pad folios. Mr. Dubinsky.
I think that's on its own.
Just let me know if you need a pen.
Megan, you can chime in as we go through this. Obviously, you've had experience with a lot of the things you're going to see on this list. It's called the Job Prep Seminar, and another way to name it would be the do's and don'ts in the workplace. Some of you, the workplaces will be more formal, and others will be more informal, but you're always better to err on, if you're going to make a mistake, always better to err on what the right thing to do is, and then go from there. For instance, arriving early. Make sure that you don't cut it too close. I mean, you don't want to be late, okay? Get there 15 to 20 minutes in advance. You never know what happens. I will tell you, I made a comment at the seminar last Sunday that, you know, if your boss gets in at 7, you get in at 6:30. Well, when you finally get a job and you're in the corporate world, you'll find that a lot of the executives are in early, and they get in early to do work. And so when my son gets in there a half an hour earlier than his boss, he meets a lot of other executives, and the conversations are very interesting. You could go, if the place you work for happens to have a gym and a fitness center, get in there early. You'd be amazed at the networking that you can do in there with management, even while you're working out. So there's a lot of those opportunities, but most importantly, you don't want to be late for your day. Dress appropriately. The places I know of that are going to need business attire or business casual are definitely Freshmark and Timken. So who would need help with clothes as far as business dress is concerned? You have enough to get you through a week, and most importantly, the whole summer of business dress? Yes, Jacob? Okay, Dom? Okay, all right. If you need anything, let Mrs. Bruno or myself know right away. The other dresses, I think there's might be uniforms at West, correct? So you're all set. Justin, you're all set. Caroline, what's the dress at the JRC?
They said basically casual, but they want us to get smocks and things nurses wear to go over those. And they said you can go to Salvation Army or even Goodwill and look around for those. And that's what I'm doing like after this meeting. But it's basically just casual. I wear jeans and a t-shirt.
Okay, Tessa, that's okay. All right, so you guys should be set then, but dress appropriately for sure. Turn off your phone, your iPad, your laptops. You should not have them on while you're working. Even in the most casual settings, you'll find there's some free time. Kadriana, you know, be careful. You don't want people to observe you being distracted with the technology. When you're there to work, you're there to work. And you'll have breaks. You can go on it during breaks, you can go on it during lunch, you can go on it during dinner hour, whatever the situation is. But do not abuse that opportunity. Vacation, school, celebrations, caddying, events should all be disclosed up front day one. So whatever you know about, you need to make sure there's no surprises. In the past, we've had some surprises, and it's left a sour taste in the employer's mouth. So just make sure you're aware. If you know there's a couple of days you need off in July because you're going to go visit a school, or maybe you have some kind of a camp, athletic camp or whatever, make sure you have those jotted down. Make sure you do what I call full disclosure right up front. Okay? So any questions so far before we get into it? No, you're good? Okay. Have breakfast if you're working the day shift. Make sure you bring lunch. Have some energy snacks. You know, be careful if you're having carbs. Be careful if you're having sweets and a lot of Coke and soda and pop. It tends to give you rushes and highs and lows. So your energy snacks, you know, stick with, you know, there's mixtures of peanuts and raisins, and you know, there's good energy bars, and take a look at them. And fruit is always good, and just have that. It keeps you sharp. All right, keeps you sharp during the business day. Take the initiative, find work if necessary. If you get a project, and this has happened in the past too, and a lot of you are talented, you're smart, some tasks are going to be really easy, others are going to be difficult, but the really easy ones you'll blow by, and you think you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs. Find yourself some work to do. Is that right, Meg? I mean, you can imagine Megan has had a couple of office jobs and stuff, and I'm sure there's been times where it's really been slow and down and everything like that. You got to force yourself to find some work to do, okay? And the other thing is, I never forget a story I read. It was in the Wall Street Journal. It was about somebody who did an apprenticeship for the summer. And they literally spent 8 to 10 weeks in the copy room. So you've heard jokes about, well, it's just coffee or donuts, or all I do is make copies. Well, this gentleman, and he was a young man at the time, spent 8 to 10 weeks in the copy room. And he sat there and he observed a couple of things. At the end, he wrote a report that saved the company $150,000 in money through efficiencies within the copy room. And he was awarded, I think it was $5,000 check at the end. The company gave back to him, and some kind of other award. But that's the kind of initiative and the kind of thing, you know, you gotta be thinking about. You know, how can I make the company, the job better? What could I do here? Don't always be looking at, oh boy, I'm stuck here, or I don't have any work to do. Now I'm bored. I can't open up my iPad or my iPhone because Mr. V said that's not good, you know, and it's not going to look good. Find yourself some work. Believe me, it will be noticed. And not all the time, but 90% of the time, something will come back to you good. I mean, it's the people who say, well, I'm not going to do it unless I get something first, are the ones who never, you know, they never get ahead and make it. It's the people who, like the guy in the copy room, that good things will happen when you view it as, well, you know what? This wasn't the greatest experience, but I noticed X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to send somebody a note. And so I have down Padfolio. If you're in an office environment, always have a Padfolio, a pad, a pen. You cannot keep everything up here. You have to write it down. It also shows management, and it shows other people that you're interested, you're prepared, you're not taking any chances, you're not relying on your memory, for all of these things. And it also denotes a professional appearance, okay? So have a piece of paper and a pencil. Whenever you're called somewhere, anybody's office, doesn't matter who it is, have something there to write on, okay? Because I'm telling you, even in my sharpest days, I couldn't remember everything that was thrown at me. And unless you have some kind of a note to refer back to, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You're going to forget. Be a team player. Teamwork is, we'll do some skills in a second, but and competencies, but be a team player. Be careful you don't get into the rut of, well, so-and-so isn't doing it, or, I was only supposed to do this piece. You may have told, my son spoke on Sunday. He got up and he talked about his marketing career. He was a junior in college at Ohio University. One semester in marketing, you get to not go to classes at all for the whole semester. You work in a team of like 5 or 6 people. You have a project. You're designing a product. You're bringing it to market. You're doing a true marketing assignment. It's about a couple of weeks in, I get a phone call, and Dad, I got 3 people aren't doing anything, 2 people are just doing the minimum. This project is going down the tubes. And I said, well, you got a couple of choices. You let it go down the tubes. You pick up the ball, and you do everything possible that you can, and you try to make it work. So he did that. They wound up getting an A. Teacher pulled him on the side at the end of the semester. He knew exactly who did work, who didn't do work. There were no, it wasn't like this, okay, great big team effort and everything. But you have to decide, and that's being a team player sometimes. Being a team player sometimes is the other 3 or 4 are slacking off and I got to pick it up and I got to get it done, okay? So, very important. You're going to be assigned a liaison. We've been doing this for 3 years now, and every person in a camp work program, apprenticeship, will have a liaison. So even our graduates will have liaisons. It's worked out very well. Every 2 weeks, the liaison will call you and ask you, how's it going, okay? You'll have a chance to input. Good, I would always start off with the good. That's another lesson. Always start off with the good and what's going on, and then it's not a problem. Constructive criticism should never ever be a problem, whether you're in a work environment talking to your boss, talking to your teacher, talking to your principal, talking to your camp director or your liaison. Constructive criticism is great. If you start the conversation off with, oh, I don't like X, Y, and Z, and you never talk about, well, here's some good things, or, and sometimes it's tough to muster good things, but, you should think about it. You should think about it, because again, that's that positive attitude, that's that take the initiative kind of approach. But you'll have a chance to talk to your liaison. It's a way for you to give them input on how everything's going. Are you having problems with another employee? Are you having problems with your supervisor? Are you finding it difficult to get the work done? Are you not able to communicate with your supervisors or peers properly? At the same time, the liaison will get feedback from the supervisor, okay? What we don't want to happen, and that's the reason we've been doing this and it's been extremely successful, is we don't want to get to the end of a 10 or 12-week apprenticeship and we find out that you were unhappy, the supervisor was unhappy, and it's things we could have fixed easily with a short phone call. And because there'll be a lot of, if that happens, it'll be a lot of aggravation, it'll be bad taste in your mouth, bad taste in the employer's mouth, the program won't succeed. We had 19 apprenticeships last year, not one single problem that we couldn't overcome and didn't handle immediately, appropriately. And what seems to be these huge problems, you know, when you're thinking it's, oh my God, the world's coming to an end because of this, we help you work through it, and we find out that, you know, hey, it wasn't that big of a deal. Obviously, you at Freshmark will have Megan, and so you will have a link every single day, so you have an advantage. But everybody else, it'll be about every 2 weeks. The other thing is, do not hesitate. Don't wait for 2 weeks if you run into an issue. You run into an issue that you can't problem solve through, you need to call either your liaison or myself. Or you can reach out to Mrs. Bruner if you'd like, but somebody, you have to reach out to somebody. Do not let it fester. Do not let it grab a hold of you. Do not let it affect your performance. Do not let it affect your attitude. You know, let's work through it and let's communicate, because through communications we can handle 99% of anything, trust me. Okay? We'll get that list out on the liaisons. Hopefully you will know most of them. For instance, will probably take all of Freshmark. So I will, because it's a nice tight package. I could call you, I could call you guys and then talk to Tom Fee. So we'll probably do it that way. JRC, I'm trying to think, Tab, I was thinking maybe you can take the JRC, the 3 young ladies. West Medical will be split between Mrs. V and Mrs. Thomas, and Justin, you and Aaliyah, and Mackenzie will be handled by, I think, Mrs. Myers. So, and then Dom, I'm waiting to hear on Timken for you and Kayla, but Kadriana, I can't remember who's over at Glenmore, but we'll send you a note. You'll know who they are. You'll have a number to call, and it's been a very effective program. As far as networking, networking is a skill. I mean, it doesn't come easy to a lot of people because it requires a lot of openness and honesty. It requires people's hitting it off. It requires you to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. There's so many different degrees in networking. I gave you some about, you know, you're in a fitness center, early at work. There's scheduled breakfast, or let's have a lunch. There's, hey, somebody calls you into their office, you know, that noticed you were doing something good, and it's your boss's boss, and you guys are gonna find out. Mr. Craner, who's the CEO at Freshmark, is gonna stop by your desk. He's gonna stop by, right, Meg?
Yes.
And what does he ask? What does he ask when he stops by your desk?
Just how things are going, how you like your job, who you met, you know, that sort of thing he wants to know.
Yeah, what are you working on? Yeah.
How his other employees are, how you like your job, because it's his job to make sure that his company runs correctly.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a form of networking. I think EJ at Goodyear has done a good job setting up a couple of lunches and things like that. Dom, you'll get some of that exposure, especially over in the HR department. You know, that'll be pretty cool. But you know, it's a skill. It's something you want to do. You want to go. You want to say, boy, you know, like to meet that doctor, you know, or something. Well, you may talk to your liaison about it, you may talk to Mrs. Westerbeck about it, you may call me and talk to me about it, and get a little bit out of your comfort zone. You see somebody walking around, Mr. Tom Thompson walks around quite often at the JRC, Early Learning Center. Mr. Thompson, you know, try, as long as you're not, as long as you're not, you're still doing your work. Hi, Mr. Thompson, you know, Caroline Ganeri, how you doing? You know, and start a conversation, and you know, that's all part of networking. Look it up. There's tips if you Google. There's tips. There's things you can do. You know, to start a conversation. I would every day have a to-do list. I do it to this day, and I'm retired. But it's important. Matter of fact, I have a bunch of to-do lists. So I might have I have a separate to-do list that I have to do with Tabitha, because it involves that. I have a separate to-do list for myself. I have another to-do list for maybe Mr. Bruner, if I'm working on some things. So you could have multiple to-do lists, but I would, if you're waking up every day and winging what you have to get done every day in life, whether it's with school, whether it's with job, whether it's personally, and you don't have a handle on a list with priorities, which leads into the next point, which is getting the most important things done, you're going to be in trouble. So if I have a list, and I have a couple of lists, and a few lists that add up to 15, 20 things that are always on there that I have to get to do, then the next thing is to prioritize them. Now it's very easy if you prioritize the items you have to do into A, B's, and C's. It's very easy to knock the C's off. You go, well, that won't take much time. That's only 10 minutes. And then the next one's 15, the next one's 20, and I'll knock all of those off. And you let the A's and the B's go, eventually it's going to catch up to you. It will not be a pleasant outcome. If my boss is asking me for something and those are A's, and I'm not doing them because I'm knocking off a bunch of C's, because it makes me feel good and it's easy to do, how pleased do you think my boss is going to be if I'm not doing his A's? So it's just not going to work. So have a list, prioritize it, do your best to do the A's and the B's, even though the C's are very tempting. You'll find you can do A's and B's and knock C's off at the same time while you're doing it too, when you get proficient in it. I would go home every day. I know I can tell you for 30 years, if I laid my head down on a pillow at night, I would say, you know, did I do the best I could do that day? If not, I would, you know, go through, okay, how would I have done it better? And how can I do it better for tomorrow? So it's important that you do that little reflection. It may have only taken me 1 or 2 minutes, you know, and then I found myself going to sleep because I'm thinking about my to-do list. But I did, you know, reflect and I felt good, you know, 99% of the time that I gave it 100% of the effort, and I felt good about what I did every day. And that's what you owe an employer. You owe them a good day's work and a hard day's work. That's what you owe them, whether you're satisfied or unsatisfied. You're unsatisfied, figure it out. Find work someplace else. Work your way into, through school, through college, through resumes, through job experiences, through networking. Work your way into something else. But while you're there and while you're doing it, you do the best job you can and you work 100%. To-do list that came up again, sorry. Calendar. Very important, and I know having worked with so many high school students in the last couple of years, the the expertise in using a calendar runs an entire gambit from nobody having a clue, and again, winging where they have to be, when they have to be, so on and so forth, to very buttoned up and on time, knows exactly where to be. If they don't, they communicate back, hey, Mr. B, what am I supposed to do with this X, Y, and Z? You have to, again, run your life with that daily and weekly calendar and that to-do list. It's the only way. There's so much going on. You are under so much technical pressure with impressions every day when it's shooting at you with the phone and the iPad and then this and then that. And years ago, it was a lot easier when we had to wait for a FedEx a couple of days or a fax to come through an hour and a half. And you didn't have GPS and you had to look at a map and all this other stuff that you got going on. You got to keep yourself organized, and that's how you'll become successful. If you don't understand something, make sure you ask. Don't go, well, I don't understand it, until they teach me or until you do something. You need to communicate, you need to ask, and if you don't get an answer, you need to ask again in a polite way, but you need to keep searching for those answers, okay? Don't just go, forget about it, because it'll burn you. Because someone will say, why didn't you ask me? Or, well, I did ask you. You got to understand something. They've got a to-do list as long as they're on too, okay? And maybe that wasn't the most important thing on their to-do list. So I get it a lot of times. Well, I sent it, I called and left a voicemail. Now, I can tell you executives get 100 voicemails a day. When I left Kraft Foods, I was getting almost 200 emails a day. 200 emails a day, working from 7 to 7, non-stop meetings, and then voicemails, and then live phone calls. So you add all of those together, when are you supposed to do all of that, right? So organizational skills as you go forward, maybe not in these positions, but the more you practice them now, the better off you're going to be in the future, okay? All right. If you do not have a bank account for direct deposit, you should look into it right now. Set it up. A lot of companies will not hand out paper checks anymore. They're direct deposit. I do know that Glenmore is one of them. I don't know about Freshmark, Timken, I don't know, but I'm just posting you now. This just came up a couple of weeks ago, so we keep adding to this list every time something comes up that's new and different. So bank account for direct deposits are going to be required. Sending thank you notes. I have to tell you, very, very important. You meet somebody, you have a conversation, they help you with something, they give you advice, they send a little note. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you. That's all it has to be. You cannot imagine. You can't imagine. Adriana, the note that you sent to Mrs. Kirby, you and your sister, she raved about that. They had an interview, you sent a note immediately. She raved about that. I mean, she was so impressed. And then when you do it, it'll become common practice, and you'll just do it. You won't even have to think about it. You'll put it on your to-do list, and you'll send it out immediately. Send notes, very important. Learn how to write proper emails. So I gave you a sheet, and I think I did personally come and do a session on communications and emails. I know I hit all the seniors. I think, I don't know who else I hit in the school, but Mrs. Bruner and Mr. Bruner have a copy of this. They should be teaching it in the success classes. It should be part of it. But, and this came up last year. I had a student, 2 weeks into the program, sends me a message and says, I'm getting a lot of emails. I don't know how to write a professional email. And boom, it just hit me. I'm like, 2 years and we didn't do this. So